Hi, I'm Geri, a psychotherapist and therapeutic coach, and I'm an author. And welcome to this masterclass, The Anxiety Hijack. So we're going to be together for the next hour, and I'm absolutely sure this is going to fly by. So before we begin, I just wanted to clarify a few things, if that's okay. I'm so excited. So the session is a coaching session and sort of psychoeducation. So it's not therapy, it's not a workshop. You're still going to get plenty out of it, but I just wanted to let you know it's not therapy. Although I will be giving you some therapeutic tools and tips. You don't need to share anything on this. Obviously, this is a pre-recorded, but just to let you know, it's not about that. There is a workbook provided, but you don't have to do that. What you can do is just watch me go along and have a look at your workbook afterwards. So you'll have a link to the workbook, and there's some really, really useful visuals in there that are there to help you along with your learning as well, because later on I will show you some sort of techniques, so you don't need to work through, as I say, in a lesson. So and just to let you know, obviously it's an hour long ish, so I've started to record. I've got notes here, so you might see me glancing around, but I'm going to try not to overly edit this, and I'm just going to go for it, if that's all right. So I am glancing at notes. So here we go. So who is this session for? Okay, well, you are in the right place if anxiety has totally taken over. So if you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, on edge, you might be like, high alert, or you might be struggling with sleep, racing thoughts, looping thoughts, or generally feeling disconnected from yourself, then you're definitely in the right place, because you may be experiencing as well, along with that, physical symptoms. So I know one of them for me was irritable bowel syndrome, also heart palpitations. And so we tend to get a lot of overthinking, a lot of thoughts, and then the physical symptoms. So these things do go hand in hand. Obviously, if there are any concerning physical symptoms, I encourage you to go and get them checked out, by a GP. But what we generally say is that a lot of anxiety does come hand in hand, and we can explain all that as we go along. Perhaps you've even found yourself, your habits may have even changed. So eating differently, drinking differently, so that in essence is, why you may well be here if you're experiencing some of that. And you're not alone, because anxiety is totally and utterly, in my experience, can be debilitating, absolutely debilitating, especially if it's been going on for you for a while. You may have tried something and it's not worked. You may have returned back to feeling anxious, or you've been anxious about being anxious. So, I want you to know that I created this session because I absolutely I've experienced and understand anxiety. I lived for over 15 years with chronic health anxiety, which was, panic attacks, and a long list of physical symptoms. So, for me, as I said, I had irritable bowel syndrome. I had GERD as well, the indigestion, where you feel like you've got something in your throat. Dizziness was a thing for me, and eczema and psoriasis. So, and they still show up, in times of stress. So, that is in a crux. I get it, and I've done lots of different things to try and work with my anxiety, I guess, to get rid of it first of all, because it was affecting my confidence, it was affecting my relationships. I lost jobs over that. I'm sure friendships have anyway gone by the wayside. But I think personally and professionally, I think what I look at now is that, not one thing worked for me. And why I've created this is because, it's not anything radically different, but I come at it from different angle, if you like. So we're going to be looking at, yes, the anxiety, but when you do learn about what goes on in the brain, I do think that the penny can drop, and I see clients go, oh, wow, okay, that's what happens. This is what my brain's doing. Oh, okay. And then when we look at the nervous system, we get a bit more protective over that. And we're like, right, okay, I see what this anxiety is doing. So I want to cover all of that. And I guess at the end of this, my intention here is to help you understand your anxiety a little bit better. And ultimately, I want you to have a tool. I want you to have a tool which I'm going to share with you that you can come back to time and time again for life and share with other people. Absolutely. Because I think when we understand what's happening, we can start to build our own toolkit. And apologies, I might go off piece, so if I repeat myself, as I say, I've got a few prompts, but anxiety is very different for each person. And that's the main thing that I see a lot of. Some people, the physical symptoms are different. Some people's experiences are different. Some people might lose sleep, some people sleep more. It just needs a very, I think, tailored approach. And again, this is all coming from me, and it's sort of coaching. So I'm just sharing, again, my own views and just a little bit about what's helped me and certainly some clients. So I use integrative approach. So I will be looking at anxiety from both directions. What the hell does that mean? But what it means is by the end of our time today, my hope is that, like I said, you're going to understand what is happening in your brain and body and have a tool. Okay, so I want you to feel clearer and calm about that absolutely there is a place to get to whilst we're experiencing anxiety. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I want you to know that actually that there is hope and there is a space, and I really want to show that to you today. I'm so excited about that. So let me just explain then what I actually mean by a hijack, because I've explained my version of anxiety, and it'll be different, won't it, for each person? It really will. But just so you know, what I mean by an anxiety hijack is I use the word hijack because it literally feels as though you have been taken over. Rational thoughts feel out of reach. It just feels like you can't think straight. And if I said at that point to someone, well, can't try and ground yourself, be grounded, you may well be like, that just isn't possible. I don't see how I can get there. And I think, when I was in the thick of it, I was consumed as if the anxiety was me. And I hear this all the time from clients as well, that's, and that's why, again, I want to say, I don't think the one size fits all approach really works. So, and I think as well that generally speaking, we tend to be functioning people. It could be that a million and one things, but it could be that lots of different things have happened to us at one time, a relationship, a job, general things just hitting us. And it can be that we generally have coped before and it's unusual, so we get stressed as to why we feel so anxious. And again, a lot of the people I work with are high performing, resilient people. So, this isn't uncommon for people to, the analogy of the swan, to feel like, okay, on the outside I'm coping, but underneath I'm struggling. So let's have a look at what that basically means. And what I'm going to do is split this into 3 sections. So hopefully by the end of it, then I can start talking to you about some of these really useful tools, if that's all right. Okay, so the brain and the stress response, wow, I mean, that is a big one. And if you've ever looked at anything, if you've looked at any of the neuroscience and bits like this, it's super fascinating. And it really again is so individual, but let's look at why this matters. So when we look at your body, it's really important we look at the stress responses, because sometimes anxiety may well not be just something that you think, it's what you experience. Okay, so I know that some people are like, it's the thoughts, and we'll come to that, but it's a whole bloody party, isn't it, going on? It's an experience. And basically your brain has a built-in threat system, and that is there to keep us alive. And when our brain perceives any type of danger, your amygdala sounds the alarm. It's like, your smoke alarm. So stress hormones are then released when it senses danger, and you are then flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Now, again, I'm not going to go through this in detail because you can go, and this is a masterclass, so I'm light touching on a lot here, but you can go and have a look at stress responses. They're on my blogs as well, but just have a look and get yourself familiarised with the fact that what we're saying is when we're in danger, and it'll all link in a minute, we are a part of our brain, smoke alarm is going off. Right, so then what happens? We're flooded with cortisol, we're flooded with adrenaline. That means that our heart rate's going to increase. Our breathing can change, your muscles might tense up, and then your body is going to go into your stress response. It's either going to get ready to fight, it's going to get ready to fly. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. When I was in the height of my anxiety, I actually did used to faint. But I say that I've done it about 3 times, and twice when I woke up after dreaming and then fainted. So look, all of this is natural. These are human responses, and if you think about it, they would have been really useful many years ago. And there's a lot of information out there that explains exactly what that is. We are creatures, aren't we? And our brain is there to protect us. So nothing wrong with it, but this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with stress responses. So the body's going to prepare. You're going to have a stress response when it thinks there's danger. And this happens even before you've had time to think things properly. Of course it does. So let's say you're crossing the road, you're going to eat a sandwich, a truck is coming along or whatever, then bang, you might go into flight mode or whatever, and you might get out of there, not eat, you're not going to want to eat, and then you boom, because your brain wants to keep you alive. So get off the road, boom, let's go. So it's a very quick process. And that's why it doesn't just feel like a worry. That's why, because it's physical, it feels urgent, and it can feel extremely overwhelming. Now, the key part of this that I want to introduce you to, and again, we're doing loads of different work on this, but again, this is the masterclass, but things I want you to have a look at as well is we're looking at what we say then as well. The vagus nerve, my chair's sliding back. A key part of our system here is the vagus nerve, and you don't need to remember it, don't worry, but it matters because that nerve runs from our brain down our body and connects our heart, lungs, stomach and our tummy. And it's really important because this is where people experience IBS, digestive problems, indigestion or nausea, chest tightness or palpitations. So nothing is imagined here. And that's what I want to make it clear. We have a nervous system doing a job, and it's just doing it for too long. And the brain can't tell the difference. So this is why where we really need to look at this and we can go, oh, okay. So your amygdala can't tell the difference between real or immediate danger. So if you think about your anxiety and you're thinking about something that might happen, it's responding in the same way. You're going to get all them things happening, that all-round response in the same way. It just cannot tell the difference. So it's going to be panicking. It's going to be thinking that you're in danger over something that might happen. Okay, so I thought that so what if I lose my job? And what we say here is we talk about catastrophizing. Okay, what if I can't pay my mortgage? What if this symptom means there's something really serious, even if nothing is happening, and I say right now, so there's potential of, because clients will say to me, but it is real, Geri. If I don't hit my target, I won't keep my job, and and if I don't have the money, then I will lose my home and all of that. And I'm not saying it's not real, okay? That is not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is the crucial distinction is this. The problems, they are real, but they don't require your body to be flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, because when you're thinking about that and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose health, then the body's going, right, come on, I'm gonna protect you, let's give you some of this, and then you're into a stress response, which means that, again, you're either going to be ready to fight, fly, you're going to get angry. At that time, what you need, when you've got these problems going on, okay, if there's potential of losing a house or any issue that you've got anxiety over, they're big ones, aren't they? It could be something, whatever that is for you, family or whatever that is, okay? So again, I'm not saying they're not real, we're not saying that, but we're saying they don't require a full body response. They require something else, don't they? If you've got an issue, you require your logic, you require maybe the ability to plan, maybe, well, definitely some perspective there, ability to problem solve and support. But when you're in a stress response, you literally lose access to that part of your brain. It just isn't, it's not there. Well, it is, but you lose access to it. So the goal here is to try and separate the problem from the anxiety response. Yeah? Now, because the anxiety response will become its very own emergency, and that is what can hijack your choices, because it's like, oh my God, I need to deal with that. I've got to do this. We're making decisions that coming from stress responses. We can either be in full on kind of like, you could maybe react to an email. I don't know if you can resonate with any of this. You might bite back to an email. You might well disconnect and just, you know, put up with it. And perhaps there's people there in what we call a functional freeze. There could be all kinds of things going on. You could be jumping into people pleasing. What we're saying here is that, you know, it's separating it, isn't it? If we know that is what's happening, if we know that okay, that's going to go on in the thoughts, okay, and that's going to cause a stress response, then what we're saying is, okay, well, really, we need to be making sure that we can come from a calm and logic place. And now you're probably thinking, well, wouldn't that be nice, Geri? So what I want to do is I want to introduce you to the window of tolerance. So if you have a look in your workbook, there's a visual there, and I might well get my pad going in a minute. Now, this is honestly one of the most helpful tools I use in therapy. And I know this isn't therapy, but it is one of the most useful tools. And it really helped me, so I want to share it with you as well. So what we're looking at here is, if you can have a look at that, and in your workbook, as I say, I'm going to put some really useful things in there, and I'm going to do a little drawing in a minute. So if you think about the middle of your window there being your absolute optimal zone, it could be where you are feeling calm, all those things we said before, clear, in control, can problem solve. Problem comes in and you're like, yeah, no worries, I can deal with that. Someone says something to you and you're like, that's okay. You're not taking it personally to an extent, if that makes sense. You've got some self-awareness and you're kind of like, I'm going to get curious about that. You're in that zone, okay? And now if you're in an anxiety hijack, you're going to be like, Geri, what even is that zone? But you know what that is? I am absolutely certain that we've all been in that zone at some point. And this is what the next bit is going to be about.